everybody, and thank you for joining Alternate and Historical Fiction Track. For our last social hour, we're here with Sarah from All Couped Up, and she is going to make our first drink of the evening. Sarah, if you will tell us about your drink and then go ahead and mix away.
All right, well, the first drink we're going to make I picked because it's a really good gateway into tiki drinks. It's called a Saturn. It was invented in 1959 by J. Popo Galsini, who was a pretty well-known bartender out on the West Coast, and it's a really good one because it uses a lot of really basic tiki ingredients that get used in the other ones but aren't in a lot of other cocktails. I made pretty much everything we're going to use tonight, but I also have store-bought versions that you can see, so it's a little more accessible. So we'll talk about the history first. The Saturn was originally called an X15. Galsini worked at the Konakai bar, which was frequented by all the engineers who worked on the X-series experimental aircraft program. And up until about 1967, they would go there after work every day and hang out, and so he got to be really good friends with them, so he named it the X-15 after them in honor of their brilliance. And then in 1967, there was a really bad crash, and one of the pilots died, and he was like, okay, well, maybe we don't want a cocktail named after this tragic event, so he changed it to Saturn to honor the Saturn V rocket. And he was on his way out the door to go compete in the International Bartenders Association World Championships and went on that year to win with the Saturn cocktail.
That's too funny. I honestly thought it was named after the planet.
Yeah.
Knowing that it's like a mechanical engineer inspired.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. I like it. It covers all your bases. So we're going to start with going over the ingredients because they're a little complicated. We have a passion fruit syrup. I make mine with fresh frozen passion fruit pulp and a simple syrup, but you can buy the Real. Makes a really good passion fruit syrup. It's not super sweet. It's mostly like puree, and that works really, really good in this cocktail as well, so you don't have to make your own. I also am using what is called orgeat, and this is like it's like a nut cream. You basically roast some nuts and then you soak them in sugar water overnight, and then you squeeze all the juices out as much as you can, and it's kind of like a nut milk, but it's a lot sweeter and creamier. And this one is made out of roasted cashews. You can buy orgeat. The brand I like to go with is the Jaffar's. It's a little sweet, but it's really, really rich in almond flavor, which is the more common nut used. So,
and I feel like that's something like it's not every tiki drink has it, but a lot of them do.
It's in your Mai Tai, so it's kind of like a standard ingredient that if you're going to start having tiki cocktails on a regular basis, you want to have it in the bar. Next, we have falernum, which is kind of in the same vein as orgeat. It's an infused liqueur. It has roasted almonds, ginger, cloves, a little lime zest. It's really, really herbaceous. Most people use the velvet falernum. It's pretty standard, which is very good. You get a little bit more punch of flavor with the homemade. And I've never done it before, so I thought it would be fun to learn.
I think that's the thing we're finding out the most in these series is that, to be honest, taking a little extra time and making a homemade version usually tastes a little bit better than what you find in the store.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have trouble finding these ingredients, like there's plenty of recipes out there to show you how to make them.
Yeah, and it's just kind of a fun rabbit hole to go down and learn all these different things. There's tons of great recipes on the internet, so every single one is going to taste different. Then we just use a basic lemon juice, and you can use any gin. I believe it was originally done with a London Dry, but I don't really like London Dries that much. I did an infused, it's an American gin that is copying a Japanese gin. But I infused it with lavender and hibiscus, so it gives it a nice bright color. So there's all our stuff. I will get to making it.
Fantastic. While she's doing that, I will say that as a bartender of a few years, Bombay is just the quintessential like London gin, and with all of these like super flavorful ingredients, you can get away with a Bombay, but it's better to use something nice.
Yeah, you can. There's a lot of room. The passion fruit is a really strong flavor, so you can get away with a lesser gin if you want. Just use what you got in the house. Gin is pretty flexible.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with a 1/4 ounce of passion fruit syrup. And this stuff is very strong, so you do not want to over pour.
Just a smidge. I still rely on using like a lot of my jiggers and stuff that I had from before because one, I still have them, and two, like a splash.
Yeah.
I've noticed like that gets out of control.
Yeah, no, and I like consistency. So if I have this really cool jigger that's got like the measurements inside, and so I can just kind of set it down and pour it and know it's going to be pretty much right every time.
That's the thing. And it's the easiest way too if you're making like multiples, but at the same time, you obviously have to do the math out to be like, okay, if I need 4 of these and they're 1/4 ounce each, the whole ounce. But having like a good like measuring tool just makes all the difference.
It does. So we did a 1/2 ounce of the cashew or ja, and we're going to do a 1/4 ounce of the falernum. It's so funny, you make all these giant amounts of ingredients and then you use like a spoonful.
But the other side is then you can have like 20 different drinks. So you'll be like, I'm going to drink something different every single night.
Yeah, and then you don't work. Then we do a 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice. Let's see, I've been learning all about how strong you have to be to squeeze all your own fruit over the past year.
I would cheat. They make presses. I'm like,
yeah, no, my friend down the street has one, and she was my best friend today because she let me come over and press all my fruit. Thank you, Kelly. All right, then you do 1.5 ounces of the gin. Now, I'll be honest, when I make a drink, I have a house rule that no cocktail has less than 2 ounces of anything in it, spirit-wise, But since we're kind of going by the books on this one, we'll stick to 1.5 ounces. If you were coming over as a friend, I'd make you a 2 ounce over.
So a note, you can go a little higher, especially if you're going to use a good gin. If you're going to use Bombay, probably not.
This drink can handle it. It's got a lot of power. The flavors are there. I just give it a good shake. There's no way to look cool while doing that.
No.
Normally I shake it longer, but
I like the bartenders that do like the 2 at one time, and I'm like, it's all fun and games till one of those pops off, and you're like, my drink.
Yeah, I am not a circus performer. I can't do that. We're lucky I don't make a huge mess pouring it into the glass. All right.
I think this is the biggest reason why my husband was glad I gave up bartending, because I used to come home with like, bits of juice in my hair.
Oh yeah.
He's like, something smells really cranberry. I'm like, Cosmo got away from me. What happened?
So despite this drink being about the Saturn V rocket, the normal accepted garnish is a nice little Saturn with a lemon twist and a cherry. So there you have our Saturn.
This is one of the things that I love about tiki drinks is that you make this fantastic drink and then you put a garnish on it that's just as amazing.
Oh yeah.
I love your lemon peel. I love the maraschino cherries just in the middle.
Yeah, it's so fun. I tried to find a good rocket, but those are a little harder to make out of lemon peels. I'm sure someone's done it. I'm not that person.
I feel like that's where a cucumber would step in, and that doesn't really work with this drink.
Yeah, that could look interesting.
Right? Yeah. For those at home, don't try it. It's definitely going to look like the thing that you're not trying to make it look like.
Definitely. Every time. All right. So Galsini, I can say his name. Galsini was a really good guy. He worked at a couple of different really well-known bars. He worked at the Outrigger at Laguna Beach as well. So when one of the major tiki guys, Don Beach, came out with this pearl diver, he was like, well, I'm going to make my version at my bar. And so he invented the skin diver. So we'll make that one next. Let me get set up for that.
So while she's working on that, I will give you guys another Dragon Con sneak peek. So we normally do the Mechanical Masquerade on Sunday nights, but this year, just due to the changed circumstances and to be honest, 2020 took a lot out of us. So we are going to do a different party for Sunday night. We are going to do the Never Was Jukebox, which will be a really cool version of our Mechanical Masquerade. The music will focus a lot on pop favorites with that like era twist. We're channeling a lot of postmodern jukebox. So if you're a big fan and didn't get to see any of their latest shows that came through Atlanta, then come to our party and dance the night away. We are not going to do a theme either. So we are, though, as a track, we're still very roaring 20s, which is why we've done so many great cocktail social hours. Because at this point, we're just going to let the 20s go on. See how it gets better.
Awesome. Do we need to put out there for you. I don't know how to get that. Awesome.
Slide over
Ah, there we go.
to our official taster for the track.
Yes. Rinse it out real quick.
Okay, so a skin diver.
So a skin diver is a very interesting drink. I had never made one of these before. I did a tester last night because I needed to know what I was getting into. It's really good though. I was kind of surprised. It uses heavy cream.
Ooh, interesting.
Which is a little weird. Also, vanilla extract.
Okay.
Straight.
Okay.
You know, just go with it. But it also uses another super common tiki ingredient, honey mix. Honey mix is literally just honey like cooked with water to thin it down, but it makes it a lot easier to mix into cocktails because I know you've had a bee's knees over at the Marriott, and they make their own. They get their own bees and honey on the rooftop, but they just put real honey, and it just sinks all the way to the bottom. And it's a really great drink, but it just gets sweeter and sweeter the deeper you get into it.
That's not really
no. So brilliant tiki people discovered honey mix and made it to where it will infuse itself into the entire drink and is much more effective that way.
It's super funny. I think I've been making honey mix because when you get to the bottom of the bear and you're like, I need the honey from the bottom.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna pour water in there until it melts out.
All right, let's see. I think I have everything. Also, we're going to be doing 2 different rums in this one. A lot of tiki drinks have a combination of rums because there's a lot of really good rum out there, and you can get a really great flavor profile off of them, but your cocktail is going to be so much more complex if you mix a couple, or 3 or 4. You know, I think the zombie has 3 or 4 different drinks. All the rums. The pearl diver we're going to make in a little bit has 3. You know. But it does. It gives it a really rich flavor, and you can't really nail down which thing you're tasting. So
that's the sneakiness.
So we're going to do, it calls for a gold Puerto Rican rum, and this is one of my favorites. It's Ron de Barrilito. Really lovely. They have several different kinds. This is the 3-star. There is a mythical 5-star, but I think you can only get it in Puerto Rico if you're friends with the right people. So I've never seen it. And then it also calls for a Demerara, so we're using the Eldorado 8-year Demerara, which is really tasty. It's nice and rich.
Nice. Yeah. So these are grown-up versions. I know that I think the last social hour we went with the more affordable options. But I would say that if you guys are at home and not at the con, definitely go with like the grown-up version and get the good rums, and then don't
Now, I will say if you do, or if you are on a budget or like trying to survive through Dragon Con without dropping $1,000 on alcohol, a good substitute is the Don Q.
Yes.
They make a gold Puerto Rican that is so cheap and the quality is phenomenal. Like it's through the roof. It's so good.
My husband and I, we substitute, I think we just do Don Q for everything because they make every type of rum. You're like, I can get my whole set. It's like $60 for the 3 of them. I'm good. We made it through like at least 2 months of quarantine that way.
Oh yeah, we buy it in the big handles that are like $20, and then we just pour it into the smaller bottles and use them in the bar until it runs out. But yeah, the rep came by and did an event back before COVID, and we got to meet him and we got to taste their whole line, and it's really good quality rum. They don't do a lot of additives.
That's the thing.
It's really nice.
You can really tell. You're like, oh, this is not like, it doesn't have like that weird fake syrupy taste.
So the way to tell, this is fun. We used to do a lot of rum tastings. The way to tell if a rum is any good or not, as far as that kind of goes, my buddy Paul taught me this. You dip your finger in it and rub them together. And if it feels sticky, you know they've added sugar after the process of making it. But like this, it's clean. It'll eventually evaporate, and it's not. You can tell it's good quality.
I feel like I definitely know for a fact that there were quite a few rums I've worked with at different bars. I was like, this is not good quality. I'm sticking to everything.
Yeah. Well, a lot of rum companies, they add things after they make it. They want to make it a darker color or a richer flavor, give it more caramel. They add a lot of caramel flavor in. And you just have to kind of do some research. We're starting to get really good ones here in Georgia. We're getting access to a lot of amazing rums these days. So, 5 years ago, I couldn't even find the ingredients to a good Mai Tai here in Atlanta. And we've got such a good community now of really nerdy cocktail people. So stuff is showing up, thank goodness.
Oh my gosh.
Awesome. So let's do this weird drink.
Yes.
Awesome.
We get fancy with this one.
Yeah, we're gonna use the flash blender on this one. It's like a milkshake maker. I love it because it stirs and froths without grinding up the ice.
Oh, nice.
And it just gives you a different like texture than shaking. So it kind of just depends on your drink, what you think works best. But I'm just getting used to this one, so
That is totally fair.
yeah. All right, this is complicated, so let's pay attention. Otherwise, I'm sorry about your next drink. So we do 3/4 ounce of lemon juice. Do you want me to go through the ingredients?
I think so.
I mean, the recipe.
For those of you guys, this is not the recipe that we put on the website, so listen closely.
This is a totally different one. This is orange juice. We're going to do 1.5 ounces of that. A lot of tiki drinks, they're trying to fill those big giant mugs, so they put a whole bunch of stuff in them.
I feel like some of the punches they do, they're like, it's just all liquor.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, I can't drink like this big of a cup of one.
Yeah, there have been times when I'm on like my third one, I go back to the bar and like, can you just like add some club soda to this? I need it to last a little longer, and there's no way I can drink it at this strength. Don't tell anybody except all the people watching, of course. We do 1.5 ounces of the honey mix. And this, I like to use local honeys. This is one we picked up in Asheville, North Carolina, really close to the town we got married in. Picked some apples and got some honey.
That's the way to go. There are tons. So one of the things that I do, because I have a grass allergy, and they're like, eat local honey, like eat the thing you're allergic to, and then you won't be allergic to it. So I do that all the time. I always find like as close to my house as possible. I'm like, do you have bees? Do you want to get rid of some honey?
Yeah. It really does help. I have a lot of allergies too, and it makes a difference. Although I will say I've been told that you have to really read the fine print, because a lot of places will be like, we bottled it here in Kennesaw, but it's really from Florida, which is still really good honey. But if you're trying to get super local, you have to kind of pay attention. I fell for that a few times. My friend was like, nobody in Atlanta makes that with that kind of honey with those bees. They don't have those flowers there. Oh, okay.
Just advertising.
All right, and then here comes the weird one, the 1/2 ounce of heavy cream.
That is so funny.
Very heavy.
I do love White Russians. Like, this is probably why I don't drink as much anymore. I'm like, I love White Russians. I'm like, no, this is a terrible life choice to go out into a bar and go, can you take vodka and mix it with the heaviest milk you can find?
No, that is terrible.
Oh, yeah, every time.
Now, I have learned in making a lot of cocktails that you have to be particular doing anything with dairy. In fact, most of the time I try to switch it out for like a unsweetened coconut cream.
Oh, smart.
Dairy can get dicey when you mix it with acids and alcohols. It can curdle very quickly. What I've learned is the higher the fat content is, the better you have a chance of it not breaking. I also like to tend to add that in with any other fatty ingredients first, so they have time to like really bolster their fattiness together. I don't know if that helps, but that's how I do it. And that helps keep it. So the heavy cream would be way better than like if I were trying to add milk.
Yeah.
It would definitely break.
Any place that gave you like a cocktail made with like 2% milk, be like, no thanks.
Yeah. So we did 1.5 ounces of the Puerto Rican rum, I think. Yeah, we did that. And now we're going to do 3/4 of the Demerara.
Oh, this will be fun.
Yeah, this is a good one. I was really surprised. We made it last night. It tastes just like an alcoholic orange Julius, which is not a bad thing.
That explains the vanilla, because you know what?
Yeah.
That's the secret ingredient.
Well, I've always thought the secret ingredient to an orange Julius is the egg whites. They put egg whites in it. And that is not in this drink, but I feel like it would help it. I would be impressed if they put egg whites in this.
I think I've done like sours tend to have egg whites in them. They're not my favorite part.
Oh, see, that's my favorite. Really? Oh, I love a pisco sour. You put a little bit of egg white in there. I mean, it doesn't do anything for the taste, but the texture is so velvety. I love it. The mouthfeel is awesome. All right, so then you do 6 drops of vanilla. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. And I'm very particular about it because I feel like it would make a difference. We also did 2 dashes of Angostura bitters. Let's see. Next, we go to, it's supposed to be 8 ounces of ice. And when I did it earlier, 8 ounces filled my glass perfectly. So it's actually a very well-written recipe.
Wow.
The fun part about both of these diver cocktails is they have a special glass that was completely gone for a long time, and then just like all the recipes, Beach Bum Berry discovered it and like had it remade, and he had Cocktail Kingdom make them for him.
That's funny.
And they're wonderful because they were on all the menu illustrations. They were there, they existed, but he couldn't find them anywhere. So he finally had some made, and then just last week I was at an antique store and they had a set of these, and I was like, that's pretty perfect. So I bought those too. So that's my antique.
Oh, it's lovely.
All right, we're gonna make some noise here.
Let's do it.
I like to blend it for like 30 seconds, but for the sake of television, we'll do it a little less.
That machine definitely makes me think of, my grandfather was really big on like homemade milkshakes.
Oh yeah.
And he always would do one of those. He did them like it was adorable. It was ice and milk and ice cream. And that was it. And you didn't get choices on flavors or anything else. He's like, it's whatever ice cream I have.
So there is a traditional garnish with this one, the Skin Diver. It was listed with the recipe. You're supposed to have a geranium leaf with the straw poked through it. And I said, I have geraniums. I'm going to make it a little prettier because that sounds kind of weird. So I pulled some geraniums out of the yard.
That is too adorable, though.
And there is your Skin Diver.
That looks so perfect.
And actually, I like it with a little bit of nutmeg on top. Just a little bit, because it kind of
super fancy.
preps your nose for the party that's about to happen.
So y'all, welcome to the Skin Diver. It's super fancy.
Yeah.
And I take it our next one is going to be...
Next we'll do the Pearl Diver, which I think is a much better version. It's the original, and it is so tasty. We're going to take a minute to appreciate the ingredients of the Pearl Diver. Give me 1 second
No worries.
to rinse up.
Before we set up for the next one, so I've told you guys about the Never Was Juice. Another thing that we're doing that we are pretty excited about is, so we are streaming a whole bunch of panels online, and we will be announcing that on our Facebook and all of our social channels in August when we have things solidified, because you know how the con is. Nothing's ever finished until you're at the con. And even then, it could change.
I'm going to say, usually maybe Sunday.
You're like, what do we do on Saturday? No, those panels were baked.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah.
But so in August, we'll be able to make announcements. But one of the things that we're going to do for all of our in-person attendees is on Monday, we are planning to show our most popular panels from our virtual. So if you are in the hotels and you can't get any signal, or you didn't pay for the crazy Wi-Fi charge for your room, you can come down to our track room on Monday, and we will show you our 3 most popular virtual panels that we aired during the rest of the week. They'll also all be on our YouTube channel. So after you've recovered from your post-con, then you can hop on YouTube and watch all the panels that you might not have gotten to see while you were at the con. But if you're staying home, don't worry. We have a whole bunch of panels for you. And we have some of our panels that we are going to do virtual, or we're going to pre-record them, and we'll do them in person with a different group. And then we're going to show you guys the pre-recorded just for our YouTube and Facebook followers. So tell us about the Pearl Diver.
All right. The Pearl Diver is probably my favorite tiki drink. It is so good, and it is so luxurious. It's very decadent.
Amazing.
So the Pearl Diver uses this special ingredient called gardenia mix. And gardenia mix is half butter, half honey with a little vanilla syrup and some cinnamon, a few other fancy little ingredients, and it's delicious. And it's kind of a pain to make because it's butter, so it solidifies. Yes. But what I've started doing is I've made a big batch of it and put it in a jar and froze it. And it doesn't freeze hard, it just freezes kind of mushy. Yeah. So then it gets this almost like a caramely texture, and you can scoop it out. And I put it a little bit at a time in these little jars, and I got a candle warmer.
So smart.
So you set it back there at the beginning of the night, and you let it warm up until it's soft, and then you make your drink.
That's
very
great.
good.
I've been thinking about getting one of those so I could keep my coffee next to me while I work.
Oh, it's so good. I love it. And they're like $5 at Michael's. It's nothing. So we're going to add to the mix versus the other version, third rum. It calls for a Jamaican, so we're going to use the Zayamaka by Plantation because I feel like these rums are all in the kind of, I don't know. For me, I like super grassy, strong, like agricoles. These are a little bit more in the caramely range, molasses. You can really feel the molasses forward flavors in these. So they work well together. And in this kind of cocktail that's super desserty, it lends itself well. I would not, I've tried to use a little bit funkier Jamaicans, like a Smith and Cross, and it's just a little too harsh. You know, it's not good with
you want
the harmony. Something's got to go with all the butter and honey.
I'm just amazed that you're making a drink that has butter in it.
It has, yeah, it's fascinating. And the thing that's funny is it's called gardenia mix, but it's not even like, there's no flowers in it. I think it's supposed to be the flavor if the smell of gardenias was a flavor.
I was gonna say, it makes you wonder, like, somebody out there once eat a gardenia and this is what they thought?
They don't taste like that. They're not, they're kind of bitter.
not a flower I would eat.
No, but they smell lovely. So I feel like they were kind of going for that. Normally I also like to put a couple drops of jasmine water in it, and that does bring a little bit of a floralness to it, but a little bit goes a very long way.
I feel like it's one of those things that, like, you buy jasmine water and it comes in a very small bottle for a reason.
Yes,
you're like, you're never going to use all this.
And thankfully we have Buford Highway Farmers Market here in Atlanta, and they have jasmine water, rose water, orange blossom water, all those really bizarre ingredients that go in a lot of tiki cocktails. It's very handy. Yeah.
For anybody who doesn't have like a really good ethnic grocery store, like some of the stuff you can find online, but a lot of times it's worth it if you have a friend who lives someplace where they have that, like ask them to pick it up. Because it's in, like, in our case, like Buford Highway Farmers Market, it's just like right there. You're like, it is no big thing to pick this up.
Yeah, we go at least once a week.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes more. Because what is it, 7 o'clock? They mark down all their sushi.
Oh, I did not know that. So we go for like the fresh tacos. Like my husband is addicted to tortillas.
Yes.
And we go and we buy like 3 or 4 bags, and it lasts us about like a week and a half.
Oh yeah, because they have the really hot fresh ones there. I
Just
love that place.
It's weird. You're like, the things that I go to the grocery store for that aren't groceries.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
It's a good experience. All right, so I'm starting to get full over here. All right, for the Pearl Diver, this is another recipe that Jeff Berry, dug out of the clutches of dying old bartenders' hands and decoded, because everything's coded.
Oh yeah.
This one was particularly coded. It has all kinds of mixes and things in it, but he figured it all out for us. Thank God. It's really funny, actually. I'm going to go back to that first one we did. The Saturn had been lost to the world, and someone came across it printed on a glass in an antique store.
You're kidding
The recipe
me.
was like printed on the side of the glass.
I could totally see that.
Yeah, I was like, wow, that's a pretty amazing way to discover something and notice that nobody knew about it before.
I mean, you think about it, like in that time, like you would find drink recipes on like postcards or coasters, and how well does that stuff stand the test of time?
Well, and it always washes off because someone in the 90s put it in a dishwasher.
Every single time.
All right, so we're going to start with this. I'm going to talk about how I build cocktails. We got time. I like to start with the cheap and easy ingredients first, so that if you screw something up, it's not that bad if you throw it out the door. I also like to put in sugar syrups very first, because then everything else you put in the jigger after that can help wash the rest of the sugar syrup out so that you don't lose any of it in your drink. I'm going to also say in this particular drink, originally it calls for 3/4 ounce of gardenia mix, but I love that shit. I'm sorry. I love that. So I put an ounce in. It just balances it a little bit more, I think. Right. And that way, anything you lose that doesn't make it into the glass because it's so sticky,
But that's good to know. Yeah. So pro tip, do your sugary stuff first, so that way you get it all in there. Because anyone who's ever had to do like,
just be careful when you pour that if you know there's a bunch of honey still at the bottom of your jigger, pour a little bit more than you think you're supposed to, so that it makes up for it and you don't lose out on your other ingredients. But for this one, I start with the two citrus juices. Just like the other one, we have some lime juice and some orange juice.
I love that I can tell that your orange juice is like freshly made.
Oh yeah, it smells really good.
Yeah,
I was like, they won't know if I just buy store-bought, but I will.
And the funny thing is like good orange juice will like settle after a while, and you're like, all the good stuff is at the bottom, so you're like, let me shake this up.
So then we get to the gardenia mix. Like I said, it calls for about 3/4. I do about an ounce, but this is my 1.5 teaspoons. So I just do a few of them. I do 4 of those. So who knows? It might be a little more. You're not going to hurt for it.
I mean, there's so much stuff in that mix that it's almost worth like a little extra.
Oh yeah. I mean, you work so hard on this stuff. It takes you like a day to make it. So we'll put that back there so I don't knock it over. Let's see. Oh, sorry.
It's funny. I do see places that say they sell like a gardenia mix, and I'm like, but would I want to buy it?
Yeah. So there are companies that make it. They're good. Is it BG Reynolds?
I think it's
BG Reynolds. They make a really good gardenia mix. It's a very different flavor. They use, I think, coconut cream in theirs to help stabilize it, and so it's a fabulous flavor. It mixes really well with tequila if you're doing a good margarita. It's one of my favorites. But it is a very different flavor because you're using the coconut instead of like the butter and anything you have to put in to try and stabilize it. It's going to have an effect. So it's just different, but it's really tasty. But if you're trying to make a pearl diver, I highly recommend just making the mix at home. It's worth it.
I mean, it sounds delicious.
And also, I like to get like really fancy butter. Like this particular stuff I got from the local farmers market that happens once a week. And it's from a place here in Atlanta that does butter called Banner Butter. It comes in a little disc.
It's really good.
It's really good. But, you can also just buy like Irish butter at the store. That stuff's really good too.
That's a quality butter.
Yeah. So you can't go wrong, but it is. Some people like to clarify their butter before they do it, but I like that little bit of creaminess, so I don't. But I also don't melt it all the way. I just melt it till it stirs. So it's
that's a big thing. Like
it's your own preference. If you make a few of them, you figure out what you like and do it that way. All right, so we're gonna do a bar spoon of falernum. You don't want to go overboard with that.
True, because that's very like, it's a flavor. You're like, okay, this one's here.
It's always so funny in recipes to see the thing, like, they're like, oh, a spritz of absinthe. But that spritz of absinthe makes a big difference, so I guess I understand.
Someone's like, no, I put a glug in. You're like, oh, I'm good. I don't need that drink.
All right, then we get to the good stuff. We do our Puerto Rican rum. Going through a lot of this stuff this week because we've been practicing. Not too much of a stretch to make a bunch of pearl divers.
I mean, to be honest, like, what else do you do on Wednesdays?
No.
TV's not even that good.
No. Then we have our Demerara. I feel like the amounts are about the same in these two. As an ounce and a half the Puerto Rican, 3/4 of the Demerara. I'm pouring a little fast and loose. It's a good thing you're driving.
We do encourage everyone to drink sensibly and Uber, or in this case, get a DD.
And then we add just a 1/2 ounce of the Jamaican, but it really kind of brightens up the whole drink and makes a big difference. Nice. All right, now we get to the ice and the noisy bits again. Yay!
I do love how well, so Sarah's bar is very mid-century. Her ice container is perfectly, like a perfect match for her decor.
Oh, yes. This is our brand new ice bucket.
Beautiful. Unlike a hotel ice bucket, it's lovely.
Yeah, probably does a better job too. All right, same for this one. I like to do it for about 30 seconds usually, but you'll get There we go. And I love how frothy it gets. You can just hear the foam
No, that machine's amazing.
I love it.
I think the thing we learned at our first social hour is that you need to have a good ice maker or get access to the right shape of ice. Like the good ice is at, what did we figure out? Sonic and
Chick-fil-A. That's where ours came from.
And then now, like this flash blender, it looks amazing. I love milkshakes, so I would do this.
So this is the Hamilton Beach, which is pretty much just what everybody uses.
Yeah.
They're not that expensive. You can get them for under $100. Sometimes you can find vintage ones that still work that are really pretty colors. For this, I like to do, we've got some little pink and yellow pineapple flowers. They're dried out.
So fancy.
Totally edible. Yeah, you know, your pearl diver should be fancy. This one's got some nice bubbles on it. I'm pretty happy with that.
That turns out beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, you really get the yellow color there from the juices and the butter.
This is going to be exciting.
It's a very good drink. It's very rich.
Yeah, super fancy.
So not low calorie.
No. But you know what? Tiki drinks should be fun like that.
Yeah.
So speaking of drinks that look fantastic, I know that you do an Instagram account.
I do.
And for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's all cooped up. And one of the things that I've loved about it is that you're showcasing like how, especially tiki drinks, can be just artwork. And they're just these beautiful drinks that you're like, I would love to do that. Why did you start your Instagram account?
Like everybody, I got stuck out of work last summer. I work in film, and every production shut down in March. And we were kind of out of work for most of last year. And I was, you know, sitting here with this fancy bar in this brand new house we bought. And I was like, well, I got to learn what all this stuff does. I got to start exploring. And I wanted to just kind of get to know all my ingredients a little bit better. And I'm not a bartender. I have no idea what I'm doing. I build everything based on flavors. You know, I make a cocktail, I sniff the bottles to see if they smell good together, or I pick an ingredient that I'm like, I go to Local Vine and I'm like, oh, what is bergamot liqueur? Let's buy that. All right. And then I just I build it like I'm building a salad, you know, like, oh, okay, so apricot, what goes good with apricot? If I were eating this, what would I put in it? And then you kind of go from there.
That's brilliant.
And I was like, well, it's just me. He works from home. I would go and make him try it. But, you know, I would just be sitting there all day being boozy. And I was like, this isn't healthy. But I've gotten to really start putting together a nice garden outside. And I really liked the idea of being able to garnish it with stuff from my own garden.
That's brilliant.
And they started being really pretty. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to start taking pictures and help other people kind of know you can just explore. There aren't rules. You don't have to read every book and follow what everybody tells you to do. You can say, oh, I like this thing. Let's see what it tastes like with this other thing. And then you put a pretty flower in it. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but you've learned about those ingredients. And it was just really fun to kind of put together these photos. And on the Instagram account, in the background of the photos are all of the different ingredients.
I've seen that.
And I do that because it's really easy to go back and quick reference. Oh, what was the one I used Smith & Cross in, you know? What was the one that had the coconut cream? You can just look very quickly and see what you need to build that drink without having to read a lot or deep dive. And with it being Instagram, that helps a lot, that visual explanation.
And plus, if you're going to make something, say, like a gardenia syrup, and you're like, it's not going to stay good forever. That's the thing about a lot of the tiki ingredients. You're like, this is a month tops or less. And so being able to go I made this thing last night, but I did not like it. What else can I do with these ingredients?
Oh, yeah, it's a lot of fun. And, we have really good natural sunlight in this light, this window. So I was like, okay, I can just set it up here and take these beautiful pictures and maybe somebody else will care. I don't know. But mostly it was just so I could keep track of them myself, and go back easily and remake anything that I liked. By just looking it up super fast.
And so speaking of that, I know you have put together a book, a little cocktail book, which is available in your store. If anybody wants to have their own list, right there, hard copy, the Instagram of the past books. Do you want to show everybody
Yeah, so I just put together this book. It's all Cooped Up Volume 1. It was pretty much most of last year. It's full color. There's, I think, 25, 26 different recipes in here, and it kind of shows you what it can look like. It goes through all the details, and then at the back, I have recipes for all the weird things, like your mixes and your syrups and your orgeats, so that you can kind of figure out how to make it. Because
that's the thing is like, we're super lucky that we live in a city of what feels like a million liquor stores, and there are plenty out there that don't have the nice stuff, but a lot of the ones we can get a hold of, they're like, oh, I can find this really obscure thing, or they'll order it for us. But if that's not accessible for you guys, like the ability just to make like these syrups yourself is just, and it does always taste better when it's homemade. You're like, I know what I'm doing. You don't think it when you start it. You're like, this has to rest for like a whole day. It's just the cashews are just gonna sit in that.
Yeah. Well, like our simple syrups, whenever we do flavored ones, we just let it sit overnight and get fully infused and then drain it the next day. A really good thing that we usually do is add a good splash of vodka to every syrup, and that helps it last a little bit longer.
Oh, that's smart.
It gives it a little bit more stabilizing.
We got really spoiled because I made a big batch of simple syrup for like something we were trying. Didn't even really like make a ton of sense. And then my husband was using that in his coffee like for weeks, because it just like, I made the full size batch because I don't seem to know how to make things by half. He's like, this is delicious. It was like vanilla and like had all this like caramel forward, and he's like, in my coffee, it's so good. And then it made him like switch sugars, so now we buy really expensive sugar, and I was like, I'm sorry I started this.
Yeah, the sugar is an interesting thing because a lot of tiki drinks call for a demerara syrup, which is not the same as your white sugar. It's got a little bit more molasses in it, a little richer. It's usually a bigger crystal. We actually here like to use turbinado instead.
Yes.
They're about the same. Honestly, You're probably not going to ever taste the difference. We just kind of like calling it turbo syrup. So we use that in pretty much everything, but there are some things like the passion fruit syrup that I still use white, just regular Dixie Crystal sugar in, because it doesn't fight the flavor of whatever you're putting in it. And sometimes that really rich demerara or turbinado can really pack a punch to whatever else you're trying to bring forward.
I feel really bad. I was like, I bartended for a very long time just using like your basic simple syrup, where I'm like, water, regular cheap sugar.
It works.
And I was like, but it makes it better. You're like, we do the turbinado too, because my husband likes it.
Yeah, it's really good. When I worked in the restaurant, we used it on all our creme brulees, and that kind of turned me into turbinado.
That's the way to go.
It's really good.
Anything that you can set on fire and then eat as a dessert, you're just like, yeah, this is the way to go.
We do that a lot in tiki drinks too.
I feel really bad. So one of the things when we were making our decisions, we were like, under no circumstances can we do a drink that you have to set on fire, because the hotels will lose their mind if we even mention, like, you just can't even say the F word. They're like, what did you do in our room? We're like, oh, we set it on fire. Nope.
But if you're making these at home, it's really nice to set a little cinnamon stick on fire and leave it burning and shove it in your glass. It makes the whole house smell good.
You're like, oh, it's like those brooms, but if I set it on fire and then didn't like take the whole thing home, it's great. Yeah. So speaking of Dragon Con memories, so some of us went to the con back in the good old days when it was small and tiny. Some of us started because their best friend wanted somebody to go with them on a random like Sunday and just tagged along, not knowing what they were getting into. But the thing I found that is my new favorite thing is the unofficial, definitely not a day party on Wednesday nights.
Oh yeah.
And this year we don't know what anything will be like. And the best thing for me is, right, if our track isn't open, all I'm doing is maybe loading stuff into a hotel room that I'm going to use later in the week. But I like to show up on Wednesday nights, and then I go to the bar, and I go to the Pulse bar, and I'm like, this is the only time I can get a drink here. Please get me a drink. And they're like, are you sure? I was like, it's what, $15? It's fine. Just do it. Yeah. And then we used to be able to go, and I think we still can, go up to like the top of the Pulse bar where you can like look down at everyone.
Oh yeah.
I saw a picture of John Strangeway in one of his very like authentic cosplays, like up there blessing the crowd.
Oh yeah.
You're like,
I do the official countdown on Wednesdays now, and Thursdays, and Fridays.
Because every night is like the first night of the con if you just got there.
Especially if you started drinking super early. It's become a marathon for sure. I don't know. The last time I went Dragon Con on Wednesday night was just as packed as Friday morning used to be. I don't know. You could not get into Trader Vic's. It was completely packed, like shoulder to shoulder in the bar. You couldn't get in. And they have a band on Thursday night that always comes and plays. Thursday night is Mai Tai night. And it's just crazy. You can't get in there without a reservation for Thursday. And Wednesday's gotten just as bad.
I never think ahead either. I always feel so bad because I roll up and I'm like, I just unloaded a truck and you can't move in my hotel room and nobody asked any questions. And it was me and like 15 other people in the elevator at the Sheraton. It's fine. Someone give me a drink. And they're like, do you want to go to Trader Vic's? I'm like, never made a reservation.
Yeah, they're picky. But yeah, we used to come in back when, it started. I remember getting to Dragon Con at like 5 o'clock on a Friday night and everything was just getting started. In the early 2000, 2001, you didn't have the early birds on Wednesday. You could actually afford 3 days in a hotel.
I will be totally honest, like, I don't even know what I would do now if I didn't have like my Wednesday tradition of like at midnight unloading a truck in like the weird southern weather where you're like, I can't tell if it's just this hot or if it's raining.
It's so wet. Yeah.
Like, I'm sweaty. Everything's sweaty. This box that came out of the cab is sweaty. Like, what is going on? And they're like, oh, it's been raining for 20 minutes. I'm like, okay. You can tell. It's just everything. It's fine.
I used to love to get checked in first thing in the morning on whatever day I got there. And I would immediately get a lunch, get a drink, and just relax while everybody else like struggled to get in and checked in. And then we would always have a big pool party because the Hilton used to have a pool.
It did. Oh.
And nobody would go. And so back then it was Thursday afternoon. We'd have a big pool party and all our friends just as they got checked in would show up and we would just kind of like have a really nice, slow, fun pool party beginning. And then Hilton got rid of their pool and everybody started coming on Wednesday.
I feel really bad because I stay at the Sheraton because that's where the alternate and historical fiction track is. And they have a pool and it's lovely.
Oh, it's fabulous.
And I always want to go swimming, but I've always so I dye my hair purple because I do a Cheshire Cat. And I get it professionally done now. And I trust my hairstylist a lot, but I'm always worried to if I got into the pool in the beginning, I'm like, what would happen to my hair? Like, I don't think it would turn green. Like, it's greenish right now, but I'm like, it's too early to commit to that. And then by Monday, I'm like, I can't even, the world is just too much at that point. And I'm like, I can't.
Oh, I've dyed so many pillowcases at Dragon Con, whatever color my hair was.
I bring my own pillow now because I'm like, I don't want to explain to the hotel, because then you have that one bad night where you're like, I fell asleep with a face full of makeup on.
Right.
And
I woke up one time, I had worn a white wig and all of my makeup had transferred to the wig.
You feel so bad. You're like, I didn't mean to do this. As a normal functioning human being, I know to take off my makeup, then lay down. But no, I think I took a nap one year where I was so afraid to smear my makeup that I slept upright in the chair. And all of the people staying with us was like, I think she's dead. I'm sorry. You can't smudge this. I mean, I can. Hand me that pillow.
So have you guys reached the take a nap on Saturday afternoon level of Dragon Con?
So I get volunteer hours. So I'm I actually try to sleep at night, which
weird.
I'm a super sound sleeper. So I'm it doesn't matter what you do.
It's a good thing you're in the Sheraton.
Yeah, nothing wakes me up. My husband's like, did you hear that noise? I was like, was it screaming? No, I heard nothing. It's fine. But my husband does the Saturday nap. And then a few years ago, he was spoiled. He did a Saturday nap, went to one panel, came to our room because we were trying to do the slow cooker taco thing. And I don't understand how you take 2 forks and shred things. I'm I don't understand what I'm doing. So he's like, I will come shred the tacos and leave it alone. And so he came to shred tacos and he's in the back of the Sheraton where we're not supposed to be under any circumstances. And he's shredding tacos. So it's because he's being loud. And
it's a noisy business.
He watches me do it. He's like, I don't like them to touch. And he's like, they have to Wolverine claws. And I'm like, I don't understand. But he's back there, and like one of the celebrities was trying to get from their panel to like the next thing, and so they come rushing by, and he's just back there with like a pot full of meat, and the guy's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I think I know you," and he's like, "Yeah, I'm kind of famous." Then my husband being like just the way he's like, "Would you like a taco?" And it was Carrie Ewells. He's like, that guy from Princess Bride came by, and I was like, okay. He's like, I offered him a taco. I was like, I'm sure there's been weirder things.
Yeah, that's what you do.
It's the con. Like, thank God, like you were well rested for your moment. He gets really bad though because he's like, this is my story, and not you weren't even there. And I was like, I was not.
Still a good story. You can steal it.
That's right.
All of my good Dragon Con stories are other people's things.
Right. I'm in the front checking badges and trying so hard to like ventilate the room without letting the sound get in. It's not how air works. You're just like,
no.
By Sunday, you're like, the AC is tired. I'm tired. You're tired. We're all too hot. It's the South.
I know. I'm convinced this year is going to be the year with perfect weather because like so many people are going to like be able to make it.
We had one year. So I did one year where like it was monsoon season.
Oh yeah.
And I had to do like this like girl Indiana Jones cosplay. So I'm in this like white shirt, and it's just every time I walked outside, it like downpoured. Oh. I was like, I'm naked. It's fine. I give up.
Oh, my favorite was the year probably way back in the early 2000s, and there was a tropical storm blowing by somewhere nearby. So it was just super windy, which was fabulous. It was very comfortable, but it was on Monday when everybody was trying to load out, and it was so windy. It was like blowing carts across the parking lot.
Just like, good. I can't do that. Like, this is why I'm sad that we're not in one of the hotels like it's connected. Like, before we were at the Sheraton, we were at the Westin. Mm-hmm. And so we're like, we're never connected to anything. You're like,
except all the gaming now. Wow. Still unhappy about that.
I had to be super honest. I didn't even know about the Japanese arcade thing.
It's like the best thing at Dragon Con.
And then like, so I never knew about it. We were in the Westin, and like, I got lost in the different tubes that take you into America's Mart, and literally it's like 2 a.m. and I just wandered into what looked like a little Tokyo. And I was like, I don't know any of the instructions, and I'm wide awake. What are we doing?
Okay. I have no idea how to play any of those games.
Right, you just hit things. There was one that was like a drum. I was like, my husband gets back because I play Fruit Ninja whenever we go like out in public, and it's like, and so he like with the pad, it's like this. He's like, you look like my cat.
Oh, no, we're big fans of Scotto, which is kind of like beer pong somehow. But like every time you bounce the ball in just the right way, it goes Scotto. And I mean, yeah, we have a really good time with that game.
Like, I'm so excited that I know America's Mart will look different this year. And to be honest, I never show up before like 2 a.m. It's always like a super weird time, and I'm like, who else is awake? And then with the gaming area, you're like, oh, everyone here is awake. Mm-hmm. Okay, what's going on? What are we playing?
It's very easy. It's like Vegas. Like you have no idea what time it is outside of the gaming area. I love it.
It's great. And then between that, and then we always try to like wander to like a Waffle House or a deli or something, and we get like eggs at like 4 o'clock in the morning, which is possibly the worst idea. You're like, oh no, it's the best.
When they put that Waffle House in Georgia State.
Oh my gosh.
That made Dragon Con so much more livable.
These are the secrets. Like, I feel like at this point we can say we're old timers. We're like, the secret is that you go for that very early morning breakfast. You get the good drinks on the Wednesday night when you can make it to the bars. And then on like Saturday, you're like, I'm going to do this in my room.
Yeah.
It's fine.
That's exactly. Saturday's so crowded now. It's almost like claustrophobic, and I can't do it anymore. I'm too old for this. I get overheated in my costume, and I'm just like, it's not worth it. I used to be so uncomfortable and be okay with it, and now I'm like, no, I'm gonna wear flip-flops.
I was gonna say I used to wear heels at Dragon Con, and that's how I knew I was young. I was like, my feet could do it.
Oh, one of my first years, I was like, I'm gonna be Jean Grey, and I'm gonna look like I'm levitating and wear these like clear plastic heels. And they were so cool, and I thought I was just the best thing. And those shoes squeezed my toes so tight that I couldn't feel my pinky toes for like 2 weeks after Dragon Con. I was like, okay, maybe it wasn't worth all that, but it looked really good in the photos.
That's the thing. My husband's learned, like, I have a pair of boots that I love because they look fantastic, but they're the devil. And so I take Midol the whole time I'm wearing them because I'm like, I need the swelling to go down. I also need like the energy and the pain relief.
So Epsom salt and a soak in the tub every night for your feet is a
It's the way to
magical
go.
game changer. Yeah.
Means you have to be like, no, you can't sleep in the tub. I have to put my feet in this tub.
I haven't had that conversation in so long.
This is where I know, like, I'm like, my room capacity is however many people it is minus whoever wanted to sleep in the tub.
Yeah.
Because we're not doing
No
that.
tub sleepers. That's weird. No.
Because you're like, what happens? You're like, I have to go to the bathroom and you're in the tub and I don't know how this works anymore.
Yeah.
Close
Those
the curtain.
curtains are never sufficient for that kind of thing. No. Especially not, what is it, the towers over at the Hyatt now, where it's just like a saloon door or something. I don't know.
I was like, I don't need glass doors in my bathroom.
Yeah. Like you really have to be like really close with whoever you're sharing that room with.
Because you're like, here's what's gonna happen. I gotta put on like 45 minutes of makeup, and you look like you want to do something in here. But our next panel's in like 20 minutes, so this is never gonna work.
There's one in the lobby. Just kind of.
Do we have any questions on? Okay, well, in that case, I will give you guys one last teaser. So one of our most popular panels, and we actually did this as a virtual panel last year. We were pretty excited, is our pinup makeup panel. And
that was a great panel.
Isn't it great?
Yes.
Tallulah Love is coming back this year, and we talked her into doing a 2-hour panel. So it will be extra long, which will give her more time. She won't have to rush, which is great. A reminder for anybody who wants to come, bring your makeup with you. We're doing this like early for us, which is like 11. No, we're not 9 a.m. people. So if you had like a 10 a.m. panel that you wanted to go to and then you want to do your makeup, just bring your like makeup bag with you. And then she walks you through like all of your basics. And since we'll be able to give her more time, she'll be able to do contouring, hopefully, and cat eyes, and just watching other people put on false eyelashes. I'm like,
so anxiety.
Like, how do you do the thing? Like, I got confused by the curlers because I'm like, this doesn't look like you, and I put it by my eye. Like, I must be doing this wrong.
Yeah. No.
So that is one of our big things. We brought it back. We were so excited. We did not know if we were going to be able to do it. Like I said, we did it as a virtual panel, which was nice that like people were able to ask questions so she could actually like respond to them in the Discord. But this year we're like, we'll bring it back for people.
It was a really good panel a couple of years ago when you did it. I loved it. It was
brilliant.
One of my favorite panels of the con that year.
Our hope for the future, not this year, is if we have enough people who are interested, and we will have a sign-up sheet in our track room, we would love to be able to do a workshop with her and actually be able to like provide some basics, like those eyelashes that nobody understands how they work. And a couple of things so that way you don't have to bring your own makeup besides like your foundation, because that's personal. I have a foundation now that I'm like, who did I match this to?
Oh, I just get whatever the lightest color they have every time. Like, what's your 00? Yeah, that's me.
Like, this is perfect. So that is something to look forward to if you guys enjoy that. It's even now, like, I think the biggest thing that I loved about Instagram was seeing like all the makeup looks that people were doing that I was like, I don't know how to do any of this. I'm confused. So it's even something that I saw like I saw some people, like some guys, some influencers that I was like, what you guys do with your cosmetics is impressive. Oh, yeah. Everyone looks better like this. I tried doing it to my husband, but he was asleep, and that was a mistake. To be honest, though, like, right, because you don't share eyeliner, so I used like the eyeliner that I don't like. So I have a pink one.
It's a good place to start. Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna do this super cute thing I saw on Instagram from this guy, but I only have pink. And my husband is a natural ginger, so it was
one clashing. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and he woke up and he was like, of course he wakes up and the first thing he does is he opens his eyes, so it goes straight into his eye. But I was in so much trouble. But so that's something to look forward to for DragonCon. Again, you guys stay follow our social media channels, and we will keep announcing stuff. We have some really cool panels lined up, and we are really excited about what we're going to do for 2021. So thank y'all.
Thank you.
Yay! I do like the gardenia in your drink.